Hello everyone and welcome to another episode of GodSaw's Turnbuckle, the wrestling video podcast we run over here on youtube.com/UC Campbell. And this one is, of course, not your traditional variation of GodSaw's Turnbuckle, which we go through news, all that fun of it. This is more of a special episode of that. It is actually going to be our review of WWE Evolution, and to be honest with you, this was a great show. It was an absolutely great show. I was into pretty much every single match from beginning to end, and there are a few matches on there that, I'll be honest with you, I thought I was not going to be into at all, but they ended out showing something in each of these matches that just came off as either a lot of fun, or showing their in-ring capability, or their storytelling capability in these particular matches. I thought overall the show from beginning to end was just, it was a really well put together show, and the crowd was definitely into it throughout the entire night. You could tell throughout the entire night it kept going and going, and it kept growing in the terms of anticipation towards particular matches. And like I said, even a couple of them I thought were going to be very lackluster matches ended up being really good to go along with it. So let's get off with how they started off everything. They did start off, and this is where I get bad with certain names and everything, because if you figure me out in some way, shape, or form, I'm absolutely horrible with names. But they did start off with a musical performance with Lizzie Hale and Anita... It's not Stratus, it's Strauss, Nita Strauss. And honestly, they did a pretty good performance. And basically they were doing their musical performance while the background was playing the particular video package for Evolution as a whole. I did kind of like this. It wasn't an intrusive type of musical performance. It was right at the beginning of the show, couple minutes long, and it was done. That's one thing that I always kind of find weird with musical performances on wrestling shows. Sometimes they get put into a spot that is just like, it feels a little bit out of place. This one didn't feel out of place. I'll give it that one. It definitely felt like it was a really just a decent performance in the terms of the musical performance, and a good way of showing off the video package in the background to go along with it. So for the first match of the night, they started off, it was one of those interesting ones. You didn't know what they were going to go ahead and start it off with, but they decided to go off and start it off with Trish Stratus and Lita going up against, well, it was originally going to be Alexa Bliss and Mickie James, but Alexa Bliss was out injured. She did come out in the match, and she even did something in the match to go along with it, but didn't actually get, hit herself or anything like that to go along with it. So it's interesting to see what the particular injury was that she had. But she introduces Mickie James and Alicia Fox, and I thought this was a good, solid opener. This was one of those matches that you were wondering whether or not either Trish or Lita were going to really be able to do too much in the particular match as a whole. I thought they did a really good job in this match, even to the point that you could probably even you could see in the terms of movement and everything, Trish might still be able to really do this in the terms of a lot more long-term match, and maybe into one-on-one matches or anything to go along with that. She was moving around quite well throughout the entire match. Lita looked like she had lost a step a little bit, but honestly performed pretty decently as well. Alicia Fox and Mickie James, I thought, were, they were definitely good on their side of everything. I loved the little teases from storylines past, when initially it was the Alicia Fox and Trish Stratus, and then Mickie got into the match. The crowd went huge for that one, based off of their old story and everything to go along with it. Trish Stratus pulling out a top rope Frankensteiner was a little unexpected. I'm not gonna lie on that one. And again, Mickie James and both of them looked out looked really good to go along with it. And I thought they overall did a really good job on this one. I like the aspect of Alexa Bliss throwing a little bit in there to make sure that maybe tease that the heels were going to pick up the victory in this particular match, but it ended out with Lita hitting a moonsault from the top rope, and then Trish hitting the chick kick on Mickie James to pick up the victory. Again, I thought this was a solid opener, and I thought it came off as just a pretty good match. The crowd was definitely into it throughout the entire time, and like I said, solid opener. I liked what they did here, and I think they chose wisely to go with that match first. And Andre's, sorry, I'm messing up names again to go along with this. Andre's in the chat right now. Yeah. We'll talk about that. We'll definitely talk about that main event to go along with everything. And it was, like I said, overall, I thought it was a very good show. So let's go into the Battle Royal. So the Battle Royal this time, I liked this match. I liked the spots that they did throughout this entire time. I thought this was actually very well done. So, you know, each person got their own entrance, so they introduced everybody individually. They didn't just all come out at once. I like that. I did like that aspect of it. And but I like the beginning where the Iconics were the last ones to come out. They cut a promo on everybody, and based off the promo, you could just tell what was going to happen. They were going to get chucked out because they were, you know, lambasting the legends, everything to go along with that on that side. So all the legends teamed up at the beginning and chucked them out. Okay, I liked it. I like that little spot. They got eliminated really quick. And then I like the aspect of the other spot that they came up right then and there, where you had all the legends and all the current superstars who were there, and the current superstars circled them, and that's when the brawl just began. I liked those little nuances in there to go along with it. Typical Battle Royal fare here. I thought they did a pretty good job with this one, and everybody who was in that particular match, I thought they did everything pretty well, and I thought they came up with a good final four on that one to go along with it. For a while, you had Mandy Rose and Sonya Deville basically eliminating each of the legends one by one by one by one, and I thought it came off. I thought that came off really good, and then of course you got the spot where Mandy Rose turns on Sonya Deville. Sonya didn't look happy, so maybe they're teasing something for SmackDown or something to go along with that. You have something there to go along with that. Kind of typical things what you would see in Battle Royal with tag team partners to go along with it. And again, I thought it came off as really well. I thought most of the Battle Royal came off as really well done to go along with it. It came down to the final four of, let's see if I can fully remember. I know it was Ember Moon, it was Tamina, it was Nia Jax, and Asuka. I thought it was a good final four to be chosen. I even liked a few spots beforehand where you had Nia Jax and Tamina facing off, and it's like, okay, the two type of giants in the match were going to face off and they were going to collide. But instead of doing the typical spot, they did a bit where they kind of charged up a little bit and then went after everybody. I thought it was really good. I thought these were little nuances and little touches that I thought made this particular match a lot better than what I think a lot of people were kind of expecting. The final four, again, with Ember Moon, Asuka, Tamina, and Nia Jax, I thought came off really well as well. Ember Moon with a very good flurry with everything with Asuka before eliminating Asuka, getting rid of her in the match. So it came down to Tamina, Nia Jax, and Ember Moon. And it looked like Nia Jax and Tamina were going to be teaming up a bit, but eventually Ember Moon gets rid of Tamina to go along with it. Or yeah, on that side of everything. No. Oh yeah, was it that one? I forget off the top of my head now. I do forget off the top of my head. But you did have a very good spot towards the end of the match as well. Oh yeah, because it was to me, you thought it was the final four, but it was really the final five. It slipped my mind there for a brief moment. So you had Ember Moon and Nia Jax battling on the ropes, and Ember Moon was trying to do the kind of fulcrum elimination to Nia Jax, and then all of a sudden Zelina Vega comes back in. She had gotten herself out of the ring beforehand and snuck back in thinking she eliminated both of them, but she eliminated no one, and eventually met up with Nia Jax and got gorilla pressed outside of the ring and thrown into Tamina. I thought that was a good decent spot there. And then Ember Moon and Nia Jax have a brief back and forth before Nia Jax eliminates Ember Moon and picks up the victory and is going to get a shot at the Raw Women's title somewhere down the line again. So we are back to the that aspect that Nia Jax is going to be going after the Raw Women's title here very, very soon. Again, I thought this Battle Royal was a lot better than what I was really expecting it to be, and I thought it came off really, really well in the end. I thought it came off really, really well. And to go along with it. So yeah, overall, I thought it was I thought this Battle Royal was a lot better than what I was expecting it to be. Nia Jax did cut a promo after the match, you know, and celebrated with her aunt, who is also The Rock's mother, being out there. And again, I thought it was a lot better than what I was expecting that particular match to be, mostly due to the build-up. Which is something we'll probably talk about a little bit. That was one of the things that was maybe lacking, was a proper build to some of these matches, but the in-ring and the stories that they told in the matches made up for that lack of build, and it came off really well. So up next was the finals to the Mae Young Classic, and it was Toni Storm going up against Io Shirai, and what can you say? What can you really say about this match? I thought it was great. Both did really good in there. Obviously, in the terms of people not necessarily maybe knowing these two particularly, this match and the NXT title match were the two that were expected to be good, but it was going to be interesting to see if the crowd would get behind it, because a lot of the main roster crowd is probably never heard of Toni Storm or Io Shirai or Kairi Sane or Shayna Baszler. They haven't seen much of that. So you're really interested to see whether or not they were going to get behind those particular matches, and they did. I thought this was absolutely, I thought this was a very good match from beginning to end on there. Each of them telling the story of how much they were, basically telling the story of how much they wanted to win the Mae Young Classic, win the tournament, what it meant to them in that particular match. Each of them kicking out of finishers and you know, kicking out finishers to go along with it. You had Io Shirai attempting to set up for the moonsault in many different ways, eventually getting the eventually hitting the moonsault to the outside of the ring at that point. And again, I thought the match just came off really well done. You had some very good spots to go along with that, and showing how far that each of them were going to go to try to win the match, especially with Toni Storm doing the German suplex on the ring apron, hitting the Storm Zero, the Tiger Driver, to only get a 2 count, but eventually getting it again to pick up the victory and to pick up the Mae Young Classic. I thought this was a very good match. This was one of those matches that I thought was going to be very good to begin with, and it did kind of live up to that one on that side of everything. And like I said, it came off really well on that side. They did do the presentation afterwards with Triple H. They did have Triple H out there as he was, you know, running the Mae Young Classic, everything to go along with that. They had Triple H, Stephanie, they had You had Sarah I forget her last name. But it was Sarah Del Rey. For the terms of wrestling, it's Sarah Del Rey, who's one of the coaches over at NXT. She was out there to go along with that, with presentation to the end and giving Toni Storm the Mae Young Classic trophy. Again, I thought this was a very good match. And again, it's one of those things of calling the matches different. And that's the one thing that you kind of recognize throughout the entire show, especially with Michael Cole, Renee Young, and with Beth Phoenix on commentary. The difference in calling the Mae Young Classic versus calling the other matches to go along with it was because the Mae Young Classic was based around competition, where there's a lot more story to be told in the other ones. So it was kind of a refreshing feel and a refreshing thing to hear them go more competition, which is what they had been doing with the Mae Young Classic, if you have been watching those in the terms of the commentary, versus some of the other matches you heard throughout the night as well. And again, I thought this match was really, really good. And this brings us to the 6-woman tag match. This brings us to that the 6-woman tag match. It was Sasha Banks, Bayley, and Natalya going up against the Riot Squad. And this is one of those matches that... This was the match that I would basically say is like, I was not expecting this particular match to be as good as it was. But the story that they told throughout the entire match was absolutely great. It was showing the camaraderie of the Riot Squad and how they worked so well as a team throughout the entire thing, and how Bayley, Sasha, and Natalya had to fight it to get back into the match throughout the entire time, to where it looked like in multiple situations where it was in 3-on-1 situations. That spot with Bayley going for the drop kick through the corner, and then Sarah Logan meeting her and hitting drop kicking her into the ring post looked painful, absolutely painful. And the double teaming that they did in the particular match as well, I thought this was absolutely fantastic. This was by far the sleeper match of the night, by far, because it was absolutely fantastic with what they did inside the ring. Bayley having to fight back through everything, eventually Sasha and Natalya getting taken out, or Bayley and Natalya being taken out at any given time, and the 3 Riot Squad members working over the other person that was in the ring to go along with it, as the other ones fight back from time to time and get a couple of hot tags here and there, but eventually figuring out what they needed to do in the end to get the victory. But you also saw like little spots where Sasha Banks does the backstabber into the Bayley, and then Bayley does the Bayley to belly to get almost a near fall, but it gets broken up in the end. But it eventually gets down to where they were finally able to get rid of the other Riot Squad members, and it was only Liv in the ring, and Natalya. It looked like Liv was going to go for like a Frankensteiner or a Hurricane Rana, but Natalya counters it with a powerbomb, which gets met by a top rope elbow by Bayley to a frog splash from Sasha Banks to pick up the victory, and basically, like I said, give you the sleeper match of the night. Honestly, it wasn't the best match of the night, but it was one of those matches that was like, I wasn't expecting that one to be as good as it was. Basically because of the build-up, and a lot of people felt like it was going to be just kind of a standard fair match, and they treated it far more than a standard fair match. They gave it tons of time for the story to build and build and build and get into it. I thought it was great. And it felt like this was that match where each person who was out there felt like they had something to prove. And again, they gave it time, and they told themselves a good story out of it. This was a very good match to go along with it. So this brings us into the 3 title matches of the night. We say 3 because initially they were thinking that the NXT UK Women's title was going to be on the line, but they haven't gotten to that point NXT UK show that they could actually do something like that. But overall, the next match was Kairi Sane going up against Shayna Baszler for the NXT Women's title. And they knocked it out of the park. They did. I thought this was absolutely fantastic. They did a very good job in this particular match, and even getting it to a point that showing how much resiliency Kairi Sane had in this match, but she could not fight off everything that was going on. She was fighting back through an arm injury throughout the entire match because Shayna Baszler stomped on the arm early on in the match, and continually had to fight back from that the entire time. Continually wanting to go for the insane elbow as well, but eventually Kairi, when Shayna rolls out of the ring one time, does a crossbody out to the outside of the ring. Fantastic looking spot to go along with that. And throughout that aspect, they start brawling on the outside, and lo and behold, Shayna Baszler gets thrown over the barricade into the other four horsewomen. The other two four horsewomen, which was Jasmine Duke, and I have horrible with names. And it was Mariana Sharif, I believe. Sorry, I'm horrible with names. I'm absolutely horrible with names. But she gets thrown into them by Kairi Sane. So they fight back into the ring, and Kairi was going for the elbow again, but one of them gets involved behind the referee's back. Even to the point that they did get involved outside of the ring initially, before the referee had seen everything. And I loved how they did little nuances to make sure the ref didn't see the interference to go along with it. I thought it was absolutely great. So they got to a point where it looked like Kairi was going to hit the where Shayna hits the clutch on Kairi, but she rolls up, she rolls through and eventually gets another roll up. And when she gets the 2 count, you see the referee go to the bell keeper to say, hey, it was a 2, but Kairi gets thrown into the ropes and was met with a kick by one of the 4 horsewomen, and then gets put into the clutch and ends out passing out. Shayna Baszler picks up the NXT Women's title, and what I thought was actually a really good match. I'm not a big fan, like with NXT, they don't usually do a lot of interference. Sometimes they do. You'd seen interference and everything with Selena Vega and everything during Andrade Cien Almas's title reign and everything to go along with that. They don't typically do that on the women's side, but they did go that route here to go along with it. And I thought it came off really good because they did those little subtle nuances that they did little subtle nuances to make sure the ref actually didn't see any interference to go along with it. And that was the little things that they did in this particular match that made it great. So this brings us to, well, I'll basically say it here and now. I will literally say it here and now. Match of the night. Match of the flippin' night. This Becky Lynch and Charlotte match on main roster may have been the best women's match we've seen so far. The last woman standing match was absolutely fantastic. It looked brutal. It looked hard hitting. It looked like both of them were just taking going not non-stop, but taking out all the stops to try to pick up the victory and make sure the other one wasn't going to make the 10 count. Absolutely loved it. Absolutely loved this match. Fantastic match. If you're gonna have to go ahead and put it out there, this is probably one of WWE's matches of the year to go along with it. It's gonna be up there. on that side of everything, because it was absolutely fantastic. I loved the stuff that they did in the match. I liked the whole aspect of when they finally brought weapons into it. They didn't, like the first 3 or 4 minutes, they didn't do anything with weapons, and then they went outside the ring, and then Becky Lynch picks up a kendo stick, in the shocked look on Charlotte's face is like, oh crap, and then Becky just starts waylaying into Charlotte with the kendo stick, and then eventually they tossed a bunch of chairs in the ring. Tables started getting set up to go along with it. You did have one interesting spot. Where Becky was set up for a Charlotte set up a moonsault to go through the table. It didn't happen. So instead of going up and doing another moonsault to try it again, she tried something different. She ended up doing a senton through the table, and that drove Becky through the table for what got, I believe, a 7 count at that point in time. Both of them brawled on outside of the ring, and they even go into the crowd for a period of time because it looked like Becky was trying to run away again. But Charlotte catches up to her. They eventually brawl to the inside of the ringside area, where guess what got into play? A ladder. I think they're trying to subtly tell us there might be one more Becky Charlotte match, and it might be a TLC match. I don't know, because there was a lot of chairs and a lot of tables, and the spots that they were doing with them were actually really, really good. The kind of spine buster or uranagi that Becky did to Charlotte on the chairs looked absolutely brutal. And eventually as well, the spots that they did with the ladder, you even had the spot where Becky does slam Charlotte onto the ladder, but eventually Charlotte gains control again and does a figure 8 with the ladder to go along with it. And it eventually led to them back outside the ring. They cleared the, I believe, German announce table. And Becky Lynch goes on top of a ladder and does a leg drop to Charlotte outside the ring, and then buries her under like the announcer's chairs, throws a couple other chairs on top of her, and then even takes a piece of the table inside the ring and throws it on top of her to go along with it, leaving her buried and making you think that she wasn't going to get up. This is where it probably got a little bit weird on that side, but again, fantastic match. If there's like little subtle things that might have been little hiccups in there, they were small and they weren't that major. But Charlotte eventually gets up at 9. The reason why I said it is because it looked like she was only to a knee, but the referee decided to stop the count to go along with it. That's the little weirdness. Again, it was something small. It wasn't that big of a deal, really. In the end, based off of the story that they were telling in the match, everything to go along with it, showing how far that they were going to go to try to keep the other one down in this match was just absolutely fantastic. And eventually, it set up for the final spot, which was where Charlotte was going to set up for another moonsault, but she was going to go off the top rope to the outside of the ring through Becky Lynch through a table. Becky gets up, counters, and basically power bombs Charlotte off the ropes through the table, and she can't reach her feet before the count of 10, and Becky Lynch picks up the victory in what was absolutely a fantastic match. A fantastic match. I thought it was great. Could have and probably should have ended the show with that particular match on that side of everything. Again, it was absolutely fantastic. Can't say anything. I really can't say anything more other than just good things about that match. Becky and Charlotte did a great job here, and like I said, I think they're giving you a little subtle nuance because there's a lot of tables and ladders and chairs being used in this match. That are we gonna get those two in the TLC match? And I want to see this because I want to see what else they can do in these particular matches. again, I thought it was absolutely great. So, this leads us to the main event of the night, which was Ronda Rousey going up against Nikki Bella. And it was hard to follow that match. We'll leave it at that. But I thought they both did a really good job. I actually did enjoy the match for everything that it was at the time. I did enjoy how they basically, again, it's one of those things is how do you get Ronda into like a believable situation to where she may lose, and they did a good job with this one, mainly based off of Brie getting involved in the match to go along with it. I thought this was actually a pretty good match. You were always a little bit worried about whether or not the match was going to be good or anything to go along with that. I thought both of them did a really good job here. Good teases throughout the match as well of maybe Nikki picking up the victory, even hitting her finisher, the Rack Attack 2.0. To go along with it, but Ronda kicks out at 2. Ronda having to basically fight off both Bellas. She even did the judo throw to both of them at the same time to go along with it, showing there's a lot of fireworks going on out there. At least I'm assuming it's fireworks at that point in time. But I don't know if you heard that through the mic or anything, but I was hearing it, so I guess you might have. I don't know how sensitive this thing is, in some way, shape, or form. But yeah, I thought this was actually a pretty good match. I thought they did a pretty good job with this one. They built up a decent story throughout the going into the match itself, and I thought Nikki and Ronda did a pretty good job on this one. Was it absolutely great? No, it wasn't. It wasn't great. It was good. It's hard to follow that match with Charlotte and Becky with what they did, and then have both of them go out there afterwards. Which honestly, based off of how the reports were going when they finally announced Nikki versus Ronda, a bunch of tickets got sold to that particular show once the announcement was made. So you could definitely tell that they were the draws to it. And again, I thought they told themselves a pretty good story in this match. I really did. I did enjoy this match. Ronda's way of getting into the armbar this time I thought was really good. She countered Nikki Bella going to the top rope, did a rolling setup for the armbar off the top rope, and then puts the armbar in, and Nikki Bella taps out. Ronda Rousey picks up the victory. And again, there's nothing more than I can really say. I thought this was a very, very good show. Actually, you could probably put it up there as one of WWE's better shows of the year. Right up there. Everybody went out there and they basically gave it their all throughout the entire night. And it was absolutely fantastic. There was not one match that I could say was like, that was bad. I really can't. And I'm absolutely happy on that one, on that side of everything, because based off of how the bill was going, I was worried going into the show. I was still excited for the show, based off of everything, because of, there was at least 3 matches that I was looking forward to. And all 3 of those were really good, but the other matches that they had on there came off really good as well. You can't really pinpoint a bad match on the show itself. Overall, I thought it was a fantastic show, really enjoyable pay-per-view. WWE, can we get more of those, please? And let them kind of do what they did tonight and do it for other maybe shows throughout the year as well, to go along with it. That was absolutely fantastic. I thought they did a great job. I thought the show was great on that side of everything. So with that being said, that is basically everything I've got for WWE Evolution on that side of everything. Overall, great show. I cannot complain in any way, shape, or form. I thought it was great. I really, really did. I was a little bit worried based off of the build Wasn't worried about certain other things about the about certain matches such as Kairi Sane and Shayna Baszler. Wasn't worried going into it about the Io Shirai Toni Storm match, and of course I was very interested in how the last woman standing match was going to go with Becky and Charlotte. And Becky and Charlotte blew it out of the water. Like, I was expecting that to be a fantastic match, but they blew it out of the water. They took the last woman standing, last man standing, however you really want to say it. In this case, last woman standing. They took that concept and they knocked it out of the ballpark. They really did. And I thought it just came off really good. So overall, like I said, very good show, fantastic show. I really enjoyed WWE Evolution, and again, I would not mind seeing more of these down the line. Maybe it could become more than just a one-a-year type of thing. I know this is the first time WWE has done it. We have to qualify that. First time WWE's done it. Obviously, other companies have done an all-women's show before, and all-women's pay-per-view as well. To go along with it, but for WWE's first effort at it, good job. I absolutely enjoyed it and would like to see other ones on that side of everything. So again, with that being said, I hope you guys enjoyed this episode of GodSaw's Turnbuckle. To everybody who tuned in live, I absolutely thank you for tuning in live. I hope you enjoyed everything. For people who are going to be watching this later as well, I hope you guys enjoyed my review of WWE Evolution. And with that being said, peace out, take care, and have a great rest of your day.